The opportunity to spend over $3,000 in Call of Duty, Stadia continuing to seem silly, Blizzard then lost their co-founder, Microsoft have a big plan for gaming, Nintendo are catching heat for a design defect, and far more as a Disney investor eyes up Activision, Pokemon moves west, and gaming's new record prize pool. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Roundup. This is a real meaty one, so whack that sub button, whack that bell, and let's get into Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and money. So this is a real spicy one. According to a YouTuber called E. coli Espresso, it would cost $1,324 to purchase all items in Call of Duty 4's Black Market. Now, if you include the Black Market tiers, then that goes up to $1,812. And he notes that the first update added items that cost $345 in total, and the second one was a bit higher than that, but that each update since then has been smaller, but the updates have came much faster. He also runs some maths on the loot boxes. There are 1,316 items currently available in the reserve system, with you getting 3 items per case. Now, assuming you get no dupes, that won't happen, then the minimum cost would be $675. Add that up with everything else and you're at $2,487. But in the worst case, if you constantly got dupes, even with their system that rerolls every third dupe into a new item, well, it would cost 3 times that, and that is $2,025. And that brings your worst case total up to $3,838, and that will only grow as the game is updated. Now, it's worth keeping in mind that Espresso says his data is incomplete, and there are issues with maybe some things being missed or being counted twice, but even with a few $100 margin for error, it is an eye-opener. Now, there are titles that are free-to-play that have similar things here, but they get a bit of a pass for being free-to-play, not costing $60. Players can often intuit the differences between a developer needing to keep the lights on and having their, microtransactions in their free-to-play game, and then this, which just looks like clear corporate greed. Activision attempting to blend live service development and monetization with the traditional Call of Duty format is gaining favor with nobody. Now, it is also true that there's no way Activision expects every player to buy all of these items. That would be an unreasonable thing to say. However, microtransactions do rely on the abuse of whales to reach higher profit margins, and with the sheer amount of cosmetics being added for sale, it seems like they are both casting a wide net and sharpening their harpoons. Next up, we've got a little slice of Stadia with their product director leaving some questionable statements on an AMA. So first, he was asked what would happen to the games that people own if the service ceased, and he responded in a baffling manner, defending digital and streaming, saying, "Moving to the cloud is scary. I felt the same way when music was transitioning from files to streaming. I still have all my old CDs in the garage, although it's hard to find a CD player these days." Smiley face. He then says that the same thing has happened with movies, with photos, and with documents, and that it's all great, and that eventually our games will be safe in the cloud and we'll feel great about it. Now, he largely ignores the actual problem here. With photos and documents on the cloud, that's a backup. That's like a usability thing without DRM. With music, he sort of misses the point as well. He compared it to physical media, saying that people have adopted digital formats and thus CD players are rarer. Now, sure, people listen to music digitally, but most of that is either through streaming, through a subscription, or by buying DRM free now. Stadia's market is purchasing DRM protected games outright through their service. It's not that, so it's not really a good example. Now, a user asked, what if Stadia shut down? And on that he said this: "Nothing in life is certain. We're committed to making Stadia a success." And you know what? I'm sure that's what the other product directors at Google said before their projects ended up in Google's absolutely massive graveyard. Now, in his defense, people are quick to attack Stadia for this, while other games with DRM do suffer similar issues, including your entire Steam library. Although at least with that, Valve have, when they've been asked about it, vaguely claimed that the games will still be available. Not in a legally binding way, but that's what they've said anyway. We can't really get the same from Stadia, given that customers well, rely on the Stadia hardware to run their Stadia games. Never mind the fact that his response here just brushes the whole thing under the rug. Now, on to the next issue, which is just how much data Stadia can use. So it's going to be limited by data and speed caps by your ISP, especially when it's streaming up to 4K 60 FPS, which will be about 16 gigs an hour. Now, his response to that again was hand-waving, saying that ISPs have adapted in the past, particularly to YouTube, and he expects it all to continue. And to be fair, there's really not much he can say here, as the bandwidth usage is necessary. But that said, it's definitely going to impact their usability in areas with poor internet connections, and it might actually impact Stadia as a business, because a part of their business model is charging $9.99 for 4K 60, which seemingly a fair amount of people won't be able to utilize. Now, beyond that, he also compared Stadia Pro to Xbox Live Gold or to PlayStation Plus instead of Netflix, which I think Netflix is more the model people would want from this. And what he meant by that is that yes, you're able to claim some free games, but the thing you're actually paying for, that $9.99 or whatever a month, that is you paying for a better experience, like with Xbox Live Gold. Now, in this front, he said that the free games work like this. If you've got an active sub, you can claim that month's games. But if you drop off and come back after a few months, you'll have access to the games that you've claimed, but not the ones that you have missed. Now, in addition to that, he mentioned a laundry list of features that Stadia will have at launch, like friends, partying, and voice chat with achievements, family sharing, mod support, and more stuff being planned for later. But still, I've got to admit that paying $9.99 a month to gain access to a platform at decent enough quality, to then have to buy games at full price, that just does not seem like a good deal to me. But I guess, being a PC gamer, I'm not their market. I want to know what you think on that. Regardless, I will report back once our Stadia Founders Edition arrives in a few months. Moving on though, Microsoft's CEO has talked in an earnings call about Xbox's future with the company. Now, in the financial results, Xbox have taken somewhat of a hit, with hardware revenue being down 48%, gaming revenue in general being down 10%, but they are up 14% on their Xbox Live MAUs, hitting 65 million. Now, software and subscriptions seem to be making quite a bit at the end of the console generation. It's a big part of their revenue. Now, in the earnings call, they said that the gaming market is growing, and that because of their business model with Game Pass, their streaming tech, and Xbox Live, they're positioned to do well in that bigger market. And he talks about how their architectural developments are synergistic, basically saying that xCloud is a hero workload on top of Azure, which is kind of like their, big data center sort of cloud stuff. Basically, the point is, for them, they're putting all of this development work into cloud services, and that's all basically compounding, with Azure being a very solid framework for xCloud, and that all feeding into the other Microsoft cloud platforms. And on this one, I've got to agree, it makes a lot of sense. One thing is pretty clear: they are focused on games and services with as wide a net as is possible, which seems to be the right play for a company with a setup like theirs. And notably one that is very different to how Sony are currently running the show. Next, though, we've got to hop over to Blizzard Entertainment, who are losing one of their co-founders. Frank Pearce, one of the lesser-known names at the company, has decided to leave Blizzard Entertainment. Now, for years, he was their chief development officer and executive producer on World of Warcraft up until Mists of Pandaria. He wasn't really a figure in the public light, that was more Mike Morhaime, but he was one of the co-founders of the company. Now, it might look like many of these people are jumping ship, with Morhaime leaving a short time ago, but it's worth keeping in mind these guys have been there for decades, they're getting on a bit. If they want to try a new project, now's the time to do it. They can't really wait another 15 years, and plus, making time for family makes a lot of sense for somebody who's that age and has done really well in their career. But that said, what does it mean for Blizzard? What is the read you could make into it? Well, it's hard to say. You see, here's the thing. Blizzard's underperformance has been the norm for years now, even under Mike Morhaime's leadership. And that's even if it was less them struggling and more that they could have done better with what they had. I mean, just look at the cancelled Diablo 3 expansion, the cancelled StarCraft game, Overwatch's slow development, Overwatch 2's slow development, the cancelled mobile game, Heroes of the Storm, the reboot of Diablo 4, and their big PR mess of recent times. Something there does need to change, I do think that. But it's equally right to be suspicious of Activision driving that change, given how they've monetized their other properties and what we've just mentioned with Call of Duty. So overall, we will have to wait and see till BlizzCon to see really what Blizzard have planned for the future, but it's worth a little bit of suspicion. Next, let's hop over to Nintendo, who are currently facing a class action lawsuit in the USA because of Joy-Con drift, an issue where, after significant use, Joy-Con sticks are beginning to drift, no longer resetting to the original location, causing causing unwanted movement. Nintendo will fix them out of warranty, but it will be at the user's cost. Now, the lawsuit claims that Nintendo are acting fraudulently and deceptively, and that they were aware of this defect through their own testing and consumer complaints, but did not make the fact known. Now, this is by far not the first class action lawsuit to hit consoles. In the other generation, the old one, we had Sony, they removed Other OS, that feature from PS3, to combat piracy, and after 8 years, the lawsuit was settled to the tune of $3.75 million, a drop in the bucket. Clearly, though, for this one, they should just do what Apple did. It's a design defect, so just like the recent Apple keyboards, Nintendo should offer a warranty extension program and cover the issue at their own cost, because it shouldn't be happening. Next, though, let's hop over to quickfire and get some interesting topics out of the way. Okay, despite somewhat stagnant player numbers, Dota has maintained its real strength this year, the dedication of its players. The International 2019, through Valve's crowdfunding efforts, has broken the $30 million mark for its prize pool, making it the largest tournament prize pool in esports history. No other tournament comes close, except for last year's International, with a pool of $25 million. As to how this will continue to grow, well, I guess it's just that more players are putting money in year after year because of better offerings from their Battle Pass. As it turns out, offering what their users perceive to be a good product in a good way will get you more sales. Even if only 25% is going to the prize pool, well, that's what, a cool $120 million spent on the Battle Pass, which is quite a bit indeed. Next up for quickfire, though, we've got Tencent and Pokemon, who are teaming up to create a new Pokemon game for mobile. The developer involved, Teamy Studio, are responsible for Call of Duty Mobile and Arena of Valor, and they'll be creating this new game. There's a job listing that wants a Western creative director with AAA experience. So what this game is going to be will be really quite a mystery given that. What we do know is that the Pokemon Company are going extremely hard on mobile off the back of Pokemon Go, with Pokemon Masters, Sleep, and Home all being announced this year. It's a smart move to tie all of these in, with Sword and Shield leading the push as the first mainline entry for the Switch. So overall, it seems like Pokemon franchise revenue will only continue to increase massively. Next, though, we've got a good story. We have Ubisoft joining Epic in supporting Blender. So Epic, through their Mega Grants program, recently gave $1.2 million to Blender, which is an open source 3D creation tool. Ubisoft now also came on board, but as a corporate gold partner, which seems to be to the tune of €30,000 a year. And overall, I just think it's great to see quality open source software being supported by the large companies. Every cent that goes into Blender will improve that tool, and that will improve it for the many smaller 3D artists and game developers who also use it. Even if their motive is so that, those companies can use Blender without paying a license fee like they would have to do for other software, it still is having a good trickle-down effect. And then next, we've got an interesting one, because Activision's share price has been dropping pretty steadily. It's not in a great place, and there's speculation that it could be taken over. I mean, I don't believe it too much, but according to one investor who owns both Activision and Disney stock, they think Disney should buy it, and that it would support their goals. This is being widely reported on right now, but I think currently it amounts to, well, not much, just an investor's comment, so there's really no point in going into it unless things were to actually progress a little bit further. So there you go. That is another episode of The Roundup. Let me know what you think about the topics we have covered today, especially that Black Ops 4 stuff. Is it okay to offer that much in the way of cosmetics, to have such a high potential ticket price? Well, I suppose less ticket price and more massive gift shop after the ride. And also on Stadia, is that up your alley? Is it not? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? What do you think about ownership in a world with things like Stadia, where you don't even own the hardware? I'd love to know. And with that, subscribe, ring that bell, helps me out a lot. Thank you very much for watching this channel, and I will see you next time.